If you didn't have any emotions, what would that make you? Would that make you cold, indifferent, disconnected, toxic? That's a good question, and that's a real concern from the mind. And that's what we're going to take a look at today. Coming up. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, helping you rediscover your true self, that part of you that has no limitation, that's full of joy and love, and generates abundance in your life. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, because what you'll discover is that on this channel, we don't just talk about these good ideas. We take practical steps to proving them out and getting real world results. Now, over the past few videos I've done, I put a lot of focus into feelings and emotions and pointing out how emotions are just programs that we impose upon ourselves, where we say, if a certain situation exists, I feel a certain way about it. We make that decision. We program ourselves to feel the way that we do about certain things. And if you've been following along and practicing what we do here and letting go of these feelings, you're discovering that underneath them is all the joy, lightness, love, unlimitedness, positivity. It just shows up. It's all been covered up by these feelings, but it's already there. Yet, even when we experience this, we still want to hold on to our feelings. Like, let me ask you this. Imagine if you had no emotions at all, no feelings. What would you be like? How would you be? What would you look like if you had no emotions? Now, part of you might look at the positive side of that and say, yeah, well, that would be very peaceful. I'd have a lot of clarity. I wouldn't be pushed around by my feelings. I could see things as they are and act in a positive way. But there's also another side that says, oh, that doesn't look so pretty. I would be cold. I would be disconnected or distant. I wouldn't have any joy or enthusiasm in life, no passion. I would be robotic. I wouldn't understand social cues. I wouldn't understand other people, and they wouldn't understand me. And even worse than that, if I didn't have any emotions or feelings, I wouldn't know right from wrong. I would be a sociopath or even a psychopath. So feelings are good. I need to hold on to feelings. Now, let's dig into this and get to the truth. And we're not going to do it by arguing against these points. We're going to look at it this way. We're going to examine the mind and how the mind works so we can get a deeper understanding of these feelings, why we use them. Now, when I asked you that question, what would your life look like if you had no emotions? Where did you turn to get that information? Your mind, right? It started to feed you these stories about what life would be like, what you would be like. Some of it may be positive, some of it may be negative. But examine the mind. What is the mind? Really, what is it? How do you experience the mind? It's just a sound that's playing in your head. It's this voice that talks to you. Sometimes it says nice things. Most of the time, not so nice, right? There's a lot of complaining, a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of judging, a lot of wanting to change things, make them different. And there's also a lot of fear, a lot of worry that goes on in the mind, right? And isn't that like 90% or more of what goes on in the mind? Most of it is negative. Rarely does it dwell on anything positive. Like they say, rarely do we stop and smell the roses. Now, why is the mind so negative? Why does it always want to motivate you with negativity? Well, if you are really nice and peaceful and everything was going well in your life, nothing to worry about, what would there be to think about? Nothing. You wouldn't have to think about anything. Your mind would be quiet and you would just be in the moment. You wouldn't be chasing after something greater to be had in the future. You'd just be peaceful, content, and loving. And you wouldn't have to listen to the mind. Because the mind is always about wanting to get something else or wanting to protect you. It's always negative driven. And your mind uses feelings to compel you, to make this stuff seem really, really serious. Why? Well, it's kind of like a built-in survival program of the mind. It says, I got to keep you listening to me. I got to keep your focus, your attention. I need to feed off of your energy so I can survive. That's why it's always dwelling on negativity. And again, it uses feelings as a very compelling case to its argument. So let me give you an example. Say you ride bicycles and you enjoy riding bicycles. But one day you're out riding and you wipe out. You crash, you hurt yourself. It's an unpleasant experience, very painful. You have to even take time to recover. But after you do, and you look at getting back on your bike, the moment you start climbing onto it, you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this. Last time I was on this bike, I crashed. I don't want to do that again. You don't even want to ride your bike anymore. Why? Because one time you had an accident. Even though 1,000 times before that, you had no problem riding the bike. You were having a lot of fun. But just that one time, it brings up that negative story. So it can capture your attention, and it uses that fear to really make it real. And you don't even want to get on your bike. That's how real it seems. It's like, oh no, I'm not ready for that yet. Right? Now, this shows just how much we could really trust the mind and trust our feelings. That they really aren't based on reality. And in fact, they aren't even real. Like this voice that plays in your head, that talks to you. It seems like it's some sort of entity. It's always talking to you. It's like your best friend. But have you ever met this voice ever? I mean, you kind of identify with it. You kind of think that it's you talking to you, but it's just a sound. And who's listening to it? When your mind is talking to you, who are you? Who's on the receiving end of it? Just notice that. And notice how that part of you is completely silent, completely still, completely present. And it has really no need to think or have feelings. It just is. It always is. It always has been. And maybe it always will be. So these feelings, they aren't true. And the more you look at them, you see how when you allow these feelings to dictate how you think and run your life, you're giving your power away. It's like when you hand everything over to your feelings, they take control and you run on automatic. And that's why when things happen that trigger you, you fire out in anger or you cry, you're in grief, and you can't do anything positive. You're just overwhelmed by that emotion. That's not even real, not even true. Now this is more obvious with the negative feelings like the fear, the anger, and that sort of stuff. But it's also true about the so-called good feelings like hope, inspiration, enthusiasm. And I kind of want to say love, but the truth is love, real love, isn't a feeling. Love is a state. It's a state of isness, beyond feelings. And this is something that I'm going to guide you through an exercise in a moment. I'm bringing up some feelings and letting go so you can really discover what's beneath the surface, waiting for you there. And you'll start to experience the nature of this love that I'm talking about here. But this is a topic that really deserves like a whole series of videos on its own. But let's just come from this assumption for a moment. When we're talking about love, it's something that is inherently deep in ourselves, and at the same time, it's bigger than ourselves. When we experience this love, it's a great thing. It's not an emotion. All right, so let's just jump into it. Let's do a little exercise here where we can get some clarity about these feelings and uncover the greatness in us that has been covered up by these feelings. Get a taste of that. All right? So now I gave an example of an incident of like riding a bicycle where one incident can trigger a feeling of fear, and we can impose a feeling of fear onto that topic. And now it clouds our thinking about it from that point forward. All right? Think about something that happened to you in the past that stirred up some fear. Maybe it's a situation like riding a bicycle. Maybe it's a situation in a relationship. And now you have fear about opening yourself up, committing yourself, that sort of a thing. Or anything else. Anything in your life that happened in your past, you have a story about, that still triggers fear, and that fear is holding you back. I'm sure you've got something like that. All right, so you got something in mind? Now, first of all, how does that fear help you? When you think about whether it's a relationship, getting into a relationship, riding a bicycle, or anything, how does fear help you be successful in whatever your goal is in doing that thing? That fear doesn't help you at all, does it? And even, I mean, you might have some sort of weird rationalization, like that fear's there to protect me. It gets me to make good decisions. No, that's just plain common sense that gets you to make good, positive decisions. Fear is just a feeling, and it really taints how you think about things. So really, the fear doesn't help you at all, does it? And notice how that fear is really stopping you. It's like holding you back from really jumping into that thing and being successful at it. You notice that? It's like you want to do it, you want the success, but the fear is really holding you back from stepping out and going for it. Now, that fear itself is just a feeling. And see, we were looking at how the mind works in relation to these feelings. So you have the feeling that's supporting the story of whatever that situation is. You have the story that's in your mind, but you have a feeling that's also here. Now, the mind wants to bring these together, but they really are like two separate things. You have a story, which is just this picture in your mind, and you have a feeling. They really can exist on their own. So right now, just for a moment, take that story, whatever that is, and set that story aside. Just kind of like put it on the shelf. We'll look at it in a moment, but just set it aside and focus only on the feeling. Just feel the sensation. And to really just get in touch with it as a sensation, now in the moment. Put yourself in this moment. And you can do this easily just by watching your breath right now. Just watch your breath. Watch yourself breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in. And breathing out. And feel that feeling of fear. Feel what that feeling feels like. That fearful, insecure feeling. Unsafe. Feeling like there's danger. And just feel what that feels like. And bring up that feeling of fear. And notice, this feeling of fear comes up again and again, like all over the place. And it's triggered by all sorts of stories. Now, it's just a feeling right now. Like, we set the story aside. It's just a feeling. And as you get in touch with this feeling, rate this feeling on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the most fearful you've ever felt, and 0, being no fear at all. Just put it in that range of 0 to 10. All right? Now notice that when this fear comes up, and like I said, it comes up all over the place. And whenever it does come up, there's an inherent tendency, like an automatic habit, to want to say no to that fear. Because it doesn't feel good. It's kind of, an icky feeling. And so there's this want to push it back down. To say, I don't like you, get out of here. So we tend to say no to the fear. And see if you've been saying no to that fear. Now, when you say no to that fear, does that make the fear go away? It doesn't. Does it? The fear remains. When you say no to that fear, you push it down and you're actually holding on to it. You push it down in your subconscious, but it's still running. It's still conditioning how you think, how you feel, and it comes up again and again. And the more you say no to that fear, you validate it and you strengthen it. All right? So we've already determined here that the fear, it doesn't help you. And you're creating it because of pushing it down. Say no to it. Because you're collecting it more and more. So if you're doing it, and by saying no to it, that doesn't work, let's take a different approach. Would you be willing to do something different? All right? So, instead of saying no to that fear, look right at it and say yes to it. Just look at that fear and say yes to that fear. And could you say yes to that fear a little bit more? And could you say yes to that fear a little bit more? Now, remember, we set the story aside. So right now it's just a feeling, just a sensation, like an experience in this now moment, a feeling of fear. Just look right at that feeling and say yes to it. It's that easy. Y-E-S. And could you say yes to it a little bit more? And could you say yes to it a little bit more? And could you say yes to it even more? And even more. And even more. And even more. All right? Now notice how you feel. Notice if you feel a little bit lighter. And all we're looking for here is just a lighter feeling. Just notice. And rate yourself again on a scale of 0 to 10. See if you moved. Did you move? And do you feel a little bit lighter? All right? So, if so, we're moving in the right direction. Now, let go pushing down on the rest of that fear now. See if you feel a little bit lighter. And if you moved, that's showing you that you got some of this energy moving. You're letting go of some of the fear. All right? So welcome up some more. Let go of pushing down on the rest of that fear. Let it come up. Welcome it up. And just open up. Open up like a big imaginary door right in front of you. And imagine that fear now, just moving right on out the door. Just let it come up and let it pass through. It's just a feeling. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just a sensation passing through. All right? And just let it pass through a little bit more. And a little bit more. And a little bit more. And even more. And even more. All right? Now welcome up some more. Let go of pushing down on the rest of that fear. Let more of it come up. And just get out of the way and let it pass through. Now check this out. You may find this very interesting. You could talk to the feelings. Now ask that fear if it wants to leave. Just ask it. Say, fear, do you want to leave? And notice what the fear says. It says yes, doesn't it? That fear wants to leave. It doesn't belong there. And you've been holding it down, and that's what feels so uncomfortable. And it's pushing up. It wants to leave, and you're pushing it down, saying, oh, get out of here. I don't want you. And you're not letting it leave. But it wants to leave, and all it needs is your permission to leave. So let it come up even more. Just get out of the way and let it pass through. Now notice it leaves all on its own. Just keep that door open and just watch that energy pass through even more. And even more. And even more. And even more. And notice how you feel now. See if you feel even lighter. Now that lighter feeling, that is the real you. That is the unlimited you. That is the you that you are looking for out there in the world. When you're looking for someone to make you happy, or some situation to make you happy, to be successful, to have a lot of toys, to have a lot of freedom. Why? So you can feel good. So you can feel this lightness, this joy. Right? And here it is. You're getting in touch with it right now by letting go of the fear. It's been inside of you all along. And the mistake that we all make is we keep looking out there in the world for it. When the joke is, everything that we're looking for is inside of us. It always has been. And notice how effortless this is. You didn't have to put any thoughts or affirmations in, programs to be successful. It just showed up. And notice how even your thinking has changed. See, we set that story aside. We put it up on the shelf. In fact, you may even have forgotten about it for a moment. But now look at that story about that situation in your past and see if it's as serious or, as limited as it was before. Or see if you feel more positive about it. More of a sense of, I can. Notice the difference? So this shows you, again, how false these feelings are. They're just programs. Every emotion is just a program that we put in. We put in upon ourselves. They're not even real. And when you let them go, you start to see things more clearly. And you feel more effortless joy, lightness, more of a sense of I can. That's your true nature. And in this lightness is the love that I was talking about earlier. This love that's just a state of isness, of beingness, just pure consciousness. And notice that question that I asked you at the beginning of the video about how you would be if you had no emotions. And see if that is as true. Like, you're going to be boring. You're going to be disconnected, out of touch. You're going to be a sociopath. Is that still true? It's kind of a ridiculous concept, right? It's like, no, not at all. In fact, I'm moving in a state beyond feelings. Anger, fear, lust, guilt, pride, all of these feelings, some good, some bad. I'm moving above all of that. And in this state, it's just effortless joy, love, lightness, quiet, peace. And this is a state that's way better than emotions. And it's a state that is all loving. How can you become a sociopath when your inner nature is loving? You can only be a sociopath when you're run by your mind. And this is the start of the true you showing up. And it's up to you to bring this out fully. See, everything that we do here is provable. And what you're proving here is that if you let go of a little bit of your feelings, you feel better. And all we have to do is just logically extrapolate this. If you let go of all of your feelings, you would go through the most tremendous experience of joy, love, and abundance. But it's up to you to do it. Because if you programmed yourself to cover up all of this stuff, then it's your responsibility to remove those covers. You got to do it. Are you willing to do it? If so, then stick around here. Make sure to subscribe. And even go a step further. You can join me on some very intensive classes where we go beyond just scratching the surface like we do right here and really digging deep out these programs that have been blinding us to who we really are. And upcoming is a new 6-week class called How to Live Your Life's Purpose. I'm going to put a link to it in the description below. Check that out. It's coming up soon. So join me on it and really bring out your true self to where you can get to a place where you're happy all the time with no sorrow, no misery at all. You're always positive, and it's the most natural thing for you to be. Check that out. So check out that link and keep practicing this. Keep letting go, and I'll see you soon.